Hi, I'm Max Keiser. Welcome to the Keiser Report. You know, it was William S. Burroughs, the embodiment of the Beat Generation, once said, "You can't fake quality any more than you can fake a good meal." I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that it sounds like he could be talking about the fake newsmen from Washington Post and New York Times and the CNN and the MSNBC pushing their hashtag fake news blacklist as alt media rejects mainstream fake narrative values to eat mainstream media's naked lunch with acid memes and information liberation. To get more on this late-breaking info meme war, let's turn to Stacey Herbert.
Max, the hashtag fake news continues, the battle for who is pushing fake news. And it turns out, well, first of all, I have to mention that the Pope now is obviously watching Keiser Report because he did pick up on your meme of the coprophagist. Pope Francis compares fake news consumption to eating feces.
Yes, I was the first to breach this concept. A while ago, I had this envisioned this sequel to Pink Flamingos, the famous Waters film, John Waters film, starring the Pope as the coprophagist in this case.
Truly Divine.
Truly Divine could be the title of this film.
So the hashtag fake news about Iraqi WMD got hundreds of thousands killed. This is from Empty Wheel. And she's picking up on all of this, Dana Milbank and the Washington Post saying all these, fake news is driving people crazy and is causing people to do crazy things, like the guy in Washington, D.C. at the pizza place. But Empty Whale responded is like, if you look at the hashtag yellow cake, because if there were a Twitter back in 2003, we would have had hashtag yellow cake, or that little vial of talcum powder that Colin Powell held up before the UN. So these were hoaxes.
Yeah, that was genuine fake news and propaganda. And without the social media emphasizing and pouring gasoline on those memes, it kind of got through, and it worked as propaganda. But now you've got individuals and small media outlets able to create turbocharged talking points and memes and go over to social media, and it challenges the long-established media outlets. And as a result, they are flailing, they are failing, they are struggling, they are gasping for air. But the asymmetric war between the meme warriors and the old guard is only intensifying, and the old guard is losing every single day.
Well, and then going back to this Iraqi WMD, because the New York Times, the Washington Post pushed these stories, it's cost over $3 trillion to the American taxpayer. It's cost hundreds of thousands of lives of Iraqi people and the decimation of their entire culture and history and environment. But at that time, the mainstream media equivalent, the elite, the Colin Powells of the world, these are the guys to trust. These are the guys who the mainstream media say are the experts. The guy, he has a little vial of talcum powder. He knows what he's talking about. Just trust him.
Well, what's happening with the mainstream media is becoming an Abbott and Costello routine. When you opened this just a moment ago, you mentioned who's on first. And it got me thinking of that Abbott and Costello routine, who's on first? And who's on first? I don't know. No, I don't know who's on second. And who's, this whole cavalcade of misinformation, and it's a circular of miscues and misinformation. It's Abbott and Costello. So in ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, Fox News, it becomes an Abbott and Costello routine, where they're simply, who's on first? No, I don't know who's on second. Whatchamacallit's on third. And it goes around and around. It's an echo chamber of nonsense, adding up to a grand, furious statement of nothingness. And into the gap, into the void, steps people like Alex Jones and Infowars, who are simply doing a simple presentation of news authentically from Texas, and it resonates.
So I talked about the $3 trillion cost of the Iraqi hoax story that led to the invasion of Iraq. Now I want to talk about the financial news hoax stories or fake stories, because who is going to determine what is fake news, right? Well, I'm going to read.
Who's on first? I don't know who's on second.
I think you've done.
Whatchamacallit's on third.
Yeah,
so you have to do the mainstream media way.
I think he's taken this theme of the Beat Generation a little bit too seriously. You're on the psychedelic memes right now. You're like,
yeah, the William S. Burroughs
tripping.
Naked Lunch theme. I'm taking news stories and I'm doing collage. And I'm taking ABC and CBS and I'm moving them like in a collage on a piece of paper and reading like that guy Williams who got fired from NBC. I think he was a big William S. Burroughs fan.
Brian Williams.
Brian
yes.
Williams. I think he did a lot of S.
So I'm going to look at a few headlines from the months leading up to the U.S. elections in which Trump won. Here's a headline from MarketWatch. The stock market could crash if Donald Trump is elected president. Growth and employment around the world look fragile. A big adverse surprise like the election of Donald Trump in the U.S. would likely cause the stock market to crash and plunge the world into recession. Here's
Remember
another
TARP under the...
Yes, but we're going to stay on this story because
Okay.
we're looking at financial news that is fake, that they were pressing because it turned out to be fake. So we're determining who's going to determine what is fake news. So here's another headline regarding this cycle, this election, this financial news cycle, and that is from September 6th, and it's a Fiscal Times. Mark Cuban says stocks will crash if Trump wins. In the event Donald Trump wins, there's no doubt in my mind the market tanks. Mark Cuban said. Mark Cuban, remember, is presented as an expert, somebody who knows things, not like one of these wacko people out there online on Zero Hedge or Infowars or Liberty Blitzkrieg or of twominds.com or any of our other guests of Keiser Report. No, and he says, in fact, Cuban said that if Trump were to win, he would, quote, put a hedge on that is worth more than 100% of my equity position. Those were the headlines then that the financial news was telling the global investor class. Here's the headline after the fact of Trump election, and this is from Bloomberg. Trump bull market bounty tops $1 trillion as bear cases go quiet. Donald Trump is doing to U.S. equity bears what 7 years of economic stimulus really could. Shut them up. 2 years of paralysis has for now ended in stocks with more than $1 trillion added to shares value since Election Day, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average looking bound for 20,000.
Yeah, the ability to shake down markets and cut them, in half or to attack them, as we saw, kind of alluding to earlier with Hank Paulson. You remember during the TARP, passing of TARP at that time, they didn't get through the first time. They crashed the market. They passed the second time. If they have been the whip of being able to crash a market to get your way is being removed, then that would indicate that Trump has yet another way to impose his agenda onto the economy and onto the political system. If he's been able to usurp the ability of coordinated attacks to scare people into voting against their self-interest, I am surprised that he was able to encourage this kind of feeding frenzy at over there in the stock market. But if he can make America great again, as he says, and in a very Ronald Reagan-esque way, bring in hundreds of billions and trillions of dollars into the stock market, obviously it's going to fuel a nice recovery. You can't really make the comparison to Reagan for obvious reasons.
Well, they actually do bring up Reagan, in fact, in this next headline, the next quote here. For investors, the question is how much credence to put into analysts who are now saying everything's great, including Lloyd Blankfein, by the way, who now says like he thinks Donald Trump is going to be great for the economy. So they don't know how much credence to put into analysts whose futility in sussing out Trump's impact on share prices was rivaled only by the inaccuracy of political polls prior to his victory. Not only has he not been the disaster many of them warned about, the rally since he defeated Hillary Clinton is now the biggest for any new president since Ronald Reagan.
Well, there's an old axiom on Wall Street: price precedes news. Prices tend to reflect what's happening on the margins amongst informed individuals who are first to act, and prices reflect that. And then you find out what's happening. So the news comes out after the price moves. So I would posit that fake prices precede fake news. This fake news story is all about fake prices, because for years now we've had the problem of market manipulation. We've had all this kind of scandalous behavior in the precious metals and in the LIBOR markets and the Forex markets, and too many manipulators in there cooking prices. And we have the government reporting unemployment prices that are completely inaccurate. They're fake prices. And this has been the tail, the wagging the dog what's now called fake news. If you want real news, give me real prices. If you want real news, give me real money, like gold and money. It just came out this week that silver is being horrendously manipulated.
I'm planning on covering it in the next episode.
Yet more proof. Okay, so the first you need integrity for the economic activity. The sum of people's labor has to be reflected in accurate prices and price discovery. If you're going to interject your own technologically enhanced, high-frequency trading, algorithmic trading, fake prices, that goes into the fake news readers that then make trades on the New York Stock Exchange to create a price stream that gets reported as the news. But it's fake prices ending up with fake news.
Yes, but here, there's another saying on Wall Street, something like opinions are often wrong, markets never are. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. But that's the fact, is that most news that they're talking about, fake news, is just opinion that they don't like, because most people are just talking about facts and giving their opinion about those facts, whether the Dow Jones is going to go to $20,000 and this is a good thing or a bad thing. And some networks are going to say it's a good thing. Some networks are going to say it's a bad thing. Some opinion makers are going to say the carrier deal is a good deal. Some are going to say it's a bad deal. So they're trying to say, what I see here in the U.S. with this whole war on fake news is that they just don't like some people's opinions and they would rather have them shut up.
I believe that's correct. And I'm surprised that they were able to come to the floor of the exchange and put on a massive buy program in the face of a Trump presidency. It kind of, for me, it suggests that my thoughts about Trump have been validated to some degree, because I've often felt that if America is strong enough, and if the Constitution is strong enough, and if the Bill of Rights is strong enough, and if the founding fathers are truly the geniuses that we believe them to be, then a businessman like Trump can step into that Oval Office without any allegiances to anybody, unencumbered in that way, and sit down and do the work of the people. I sincerely believe he has the interest of the American people at heart, and that he's doing public service.
Okay, well, let's talk about this consensus opinion and how the consensus is often wrong and the echo chamber is often wrong as it applied to financial markets. And I'll quickly read this here. What we didn't expect was the speed and the magnitude of the so-called Trump trade. Doug Ramsey, chief investment officer at Luthold Group, wrote in a note published last week, the consensus hope, which we share, is that tax reform and regulatory rollback will extend and maybe enliven an economic recovery that's already long in the tooth. So all the consensus was that he would be bad for the markets. And now even all those experts that they were presented to, their consensus opinion was wrong, because who are these investors in the markets where everything is booming?
Right. Well, I mean, look, undoubtedly, at these valuations, markets are historically, by any valuation,
yes,
they're high.
Yes.
You know, on a price earnings multiple, price to sales ratios, any way you look at it, it looks very, very high.
Yeah.
And I think one thing we can definitely say is going to be a lot of volatility. And the other thing we can definitely say is that Warren Buffett's strategy of buying stocks and holding them for 20 or 30 years is probably the best strategy of all. Having said that, next half, we will have none other than Alex Jones, the meme warrior, the info warrior. So don't go away.
People with stories to tell. Those who deserve to be heard. Studied inside out, but still with unrevealed secrets. Leaders, politicians, thinkers, and witnesses. They're here to speak. Are you there to hear?
These children don't know any life but struggle. They were not born in Europe, but desperately want to reach it. What happens after they sneak in?
No podemos saber dónde los habían captado, quiénes eran y, desgraciadamente, cuando pasaron a la península durante años, dónde está hoy en día quiénes son.
Children from countries that Europe tried to bring peace to.
Parece mentira que la Europa de los derechos humanos ya no sean capaces de ocuparse ni tan siquiera de los niños. Es que es tremendo lo que está pasando.
انا وراه بنخاف الا كبرت انايا وما لقيت بحال دابا ما عندي لا خدمه لا صنعه لا تكوين لا تلعبه راه بالسيف غنضيع ما كنديرش كنقدر نخدم انا باغي نخدم.
They become lost for their families and their countries. But there is no place for them in Europe either. Lost children.
Hi, I'm Max Keiser. Welcome back to the Keiser Report. Time now to go to Alex Jones, the Texas Twister. Alex Jones, welcome.
It is good to be here with you, Max.
All right. David Korn of Mother Jones tweeted, quote, Trump is the Infowars president. Of course, quoting Infowars, your site, your show. Your thoughts?
This is one of the only times that the mainstream dinosaur corporate fake news media is actually accurate. Something that they're trying to, give a lot of Trump's success credit to me to wound Trump because I'm so radical. The truth is Trump resonated with the populism that Infowars resonates with, and so the very tide that's lifted Infowars lifted Trump. So yes, we do have some influence on Trump, but this is pretty much all Donald Trump himself. It's the fact that he interfaced with that feeling of the time of revolt against corporatism, revolt against the two establishment parties that he was so successful.
All right, now when I travel the world, I meet people who see our show, Keiser Report, but they also mention Alex Jones show. I met all the time, just in North Carolina a couple of days ago, I was in a bakery and people said, I saw you in Alex Jones show. The Alex Jones show, Infowars show, is known globally. And of course, Trump almost came here first when he launched his campaign. This was his first media stop. So what is he tapping into? To me, it's something has to do with authenticity. Hillary famously said she's got a public persona and a private persona. She's two-faced almost by definition. Is that what it's all about? Is an authentic voice?
I think the fact that we're teleprompter free and that we did trailblaze kind of taking a radio format where it's unscripted and bringing it to TV, I think that's why we've been so successful. And we're promoting classic Americana that isn't liberal or conservative. That's about, do what you want as long as you don't hurt anybody, kind of the libertarian maxim, and build prosperity and to basically, kind of like you said, fake it till you make it. America having a lot of confidence and having a good time and being into fast cars and, great looking women and fully automatic weapons. I mean, who doesn't love that? I mean, you're a businessman. You start off as a small businessman with a media platform. Now you've become, a medium-sized to big media platform. And so this is the kind of thing I think Trump's starting to tap into is American entrepreneurialism. You're a great example of that. Sure, it's classic Americana. We're Americana, Trump's Americana, you're Americana. I mean, what's more Americana than, New York City and all the bustling and building and the real melting pot and all those ideas and deals being made. But you hit a key right there. Infowars, compared to some media outlets like NPR, has 40+ million listeners a week. We've just now gotten to that point. That's big. But back when we were just 10, 15 million listeners a week, that's still extremely large, but not one of the top tier outlets out there. We actually, some weeks hit as big as it gets now. They see those spikes. Normally we're just 40 million, sometimes it hits 80 million. That's what's really gotten their attention. They can see the metrics. And so they're asking, what is it? And more than anything, it's that we create new talking points. It's not just what I cover or who I reach. Other media then picks it up, even if they don't give us credit. Our unique perspective on populism and freedom and the new Renaissance resonates and gives a countervailing talking point to the austerity of the New World Order, of the globalists, the stagnation of the corporate crony capitalist model. And so on the left, the right, and all around, people resonate with that. So it's the fact that the system of liberty had become so dim that even, our small flame of liberty looked like a huge bonfire to people out there in the dark. But as more light is brought into the world, I expect Infowars to be made obsolete. And that, quite frankly, is my goal.
All right, you mentioned talking points and introducing talking points. And when you said that, I immediately thought of Drudge Report and Matt Drudge, because Drudge Report was able to become the global news desk. All major news outlets would go to Drudge Report, read those headlines, and then set the agenda for those newsrooms across America. And now, a few years ago, Drudge really started, became a little bit closer with Infowars, I would say. And you have, as a result, the traffic, if I don't know the numbers, my guess is that you had a big, this is going back now 3 or 4 years, the traffic was spiked pretty considerably. Can you talk a little bit about that relationship? Is there a relationship? How did that happen? Where's that going?
I give Drudge so much credit that it almost becomes like a parrot. And then when I don't give him credit like I did in the last 4 minutes, I feel bad because I'm being inaccurate, because if you don't have all the data there, it's not a full picture. Drudge was absolutely the complete catalyst and next level launching pad for our information to become the new talking points. And it's not because we got together and wrote these talking points. I mean, they really are very, very close to reality. None of us have a monopoly on reality, but we're trying to tell the truth is the difference. We see a police state, we talk about it. We see Obamacare increasing prices, and the media says it doesn't. We actually put receipts up on the web. You know, we show the part of the bill where it has IRS penalties. The media says it isn't true. I mean, a lot of it is just calling their lies, and Drudge had the courage early on, 16, 17, 18, 20 years ago, to countervail a monopoly message. So he became one of the only other spots where you could see a different perspective on the world. And then as the world came into line with what I'd predicted would happen to a great extent, Drudge more and more started linking to us, but also to other stories that basically showed what was happening. And so the establishment media couldn't operate in the dark anymore. As I said, Drudge brought that huge spotlight. That's why he's like #3 on the web right now. The media kept saying the age of Drudge is over. He's dead, he's gone, he's discredited, as he went up and up and up and up to like 1.7 billion page views in October. Even more, I'm forgetting the numbers. It's like 10 billion or something. I mean, it's just, I'm going from memory here. It's just gargantuan. And all he's doing is linking to different government documents, mainstream, alternative, your show, RT, BBC. The difference is, again, it's not a monopoly of ideas. And if you don't have a monopoly of ideas, you have a free world. And so freedom starts with thoughts.
Well, he became America's front page. In other words, a front page editorial manager would just pick what goes on above the fold, et cetera, and people went to his site because he essentially identified what he considered to be the
zeitgeist.
The zeitgeist.
The zeitgeist that wasn't getting attention. Exactly. And mainstream media has been photographed thousands of times. The New York Times, the Washington Post.
Looking at Drudge.
Yeah, with Drudge.
Let me move on. So what's your take on WikiLeaks and Julian Assange? Because when he first got really notoriety and became huge, and he's locked up in the Ecuadorian embassy, I remember talking to you briefly about this. And at first, there was some trepidation, and it wasn't clear what's going on with WikiLeaks, Julian Assange. But over time now, especially with the Podesta emails, he became a huge factor. What are your thoughts on that?
Look, it was just too good to be true 10 years ago when WikiLeaks started, and I wasn't sure he was some type of operative of some government. I just said maybe he is. But over time, before Bush had even gotten out of office, it was clear they were for real. And then they went after Obama. And then they exposed the fact of what Hillary was doing. And I think he's probably one of the greatest living journalists out there. He has incredible courage. I think he should have been Time Magazine's Man of the Year, not Donald Trump. Because if it wasn't for Julian Assange and the leakers and the white hat hackers, Trump would have never gotten in. I'm not taking from Trump. It's just that Assange, symbolizing the hackers and the leakers, they are the person of the year, and I think they deserve the cover of Time Magazine.
All right, that's the Washington Post is now promoting essentially a blacklist of journalists they claim are pushing Russian propaganda and this new idea now, fake news. So what kind of crackdown do you see coming on independent media? We talked about Matt Drudge briefly. I know that Matt Drudge has said within a year or two, he's mentioned that he thinks that his site and others will be targeted.
Well, he was told by the only conservative Supreme Court justice that's left, I can't say who, he was told over a year ago, he came to emergency warn our audience, you're welcome to play a clip of it if you want, where that happened.
Do you feel any pressure now along those lines?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just today we had Facebook start blocking our stories and videos and putting a notice up that's fake news. Google Chrome started saying we're fake news when you try to go to our website, which is just ridiculous. I mean, we didn't lie about WMDs in Iraq. We didn't cause millions of people to die. We didn't say Obamacare was free. We didn't say there weren't death panels. We didn't lie about thousands and thousands of things. We didn't lie about funding, these radical jihadis. The government's been caught lying. The mainstream media's been caught lying. They've collapsed. So now the last refuge is to try to censor. But here's the good news. It just happened today. You may not know. They came out weeks after that story today and said, okay, lawsuits are getting filed by news organizations that are saying, look, we're not Russian agents. How dare you say that? And so Drudge Reports listed, Infowars, Breitbart, and a bunch of others. They came out today in a big editor's note and said, we have no proof the Russians are involved or connected to these groups, and we don't even really know where we got this fake news list. And so we apologize. This story is baloney. So they had to come out and basically retract today. So that shows you the shaky ground. Even the London Guardian, that's critical of Infowars a lot, came out and said this blacklist stuff is dangerous, where you just say something's fake. And I've had national news say that I am actually commanded by the Russians. I can't speak Russian. I've never been to Russia.
The reason Hillary lost is because mainstream media was pushing fake news. And so in response, they're pointing the finger now at everyone else saying they're involved in fake news. It reminds me of when environmentalists started to get traction pushing against big oil. You know, Exxon and Chevron started running commercials about how environmentally friendly they are. You'd see Exxon, you know, and you'd see bunny rabbits in the forest and a beautiful, pristine environment and scientists cooking up ways to help the environment. So they co-opted all the imagery from Greenpeace to promote Exxon. So now we've got the mainstream media are co-opting the fact that alt media has called them out on fake news by saying, oh no, you know, everyone's being victimized by so-called fake news. It's the pot calling the kettle black.
Exactly. They victimized us, lying about the stock market being fixed, lying about the currency rates and LIBOR and all that, and the insurance rates being fixed. All the things they've covered up for, all the lies, all the bid rigging, all the corruption, the false polls saying Donald Trump couldn't win, the media from Comedy Central to CNN being coordinated and run by the White House and by Hillary and by others and by the CIA. Then they've got the nerve to say, we're fake news. Well, here's the deal. Your ratings are huge. Mine are huge. We're exploding. We're not liberal. We're not conservative. We're populist. We're pro-growth. We want peace, just like Donald Trump. None of us are perfect, but we're real. Like you said, authenticity. We're authentic. And people resonate with that. So I guess folks want fake news according to mainstream media. No, the truth is they want real news, and they've judged by walking with their feet away from the establishment. So now that the mainstream media is dead, Max, let me ask you, what are they going to try to do?
I'll tell you what they're going to do. David Brock, a Hillary insider, essentially concedes that all alt media has beaten the mainstream media. He wants to fight back by creating his own website, a Breitbart of the left. So in other words, they're going to try to clone Alex Jones with their agenda.
But then
is that possible?
No, because it comes down through an establishment funnel of talking points. Let me tell you what Media Matters does. It gets the White House talking points. They've been caught doing it, but I could see it for years. And they get the other corporate talking points. They package it as liberal. You know, oh, war is now okay because it's liberal or whatever. And censorship's cool because it's liberal. And then it's put out in CNN, MSNBC, ABC, CBS, mimicking word for word. So they write the talking points. Now I guess he says, oh, we won't be Media Matters. We'll be some new website, kind of like Newsweek had the Daily Beast. No, they've already tried this. They've already failed. Until they become, again, authentic and start promoting stuff for the little guy, they're over.
Well, yeah, Air America, remember, was a left-wing attempt to create shock jock radio, but no one's willing to be a shock left. They have the shock right, and there's no one really doing the shock left. But anyway, Alex Jones, thanks for being on Keiser Report.
Max, congratulations on all your success, and everybody out there, the Liberty Movement is exploding worldwide.
And that's going to do it for this edition of the Keiser Report with me, Max Keiser, and Stacey Herbert. I'd like to thank our guest, Alex Jones of Infowars. If you want to find us on Twitter, it's Keiser Report. Until next time, bye, y'all.